What's going on, devoted geeks? Welcome to Geek Devotions, a show for a couple of devoted geeks, devoted to let people know that they're loved. I'm Dallas, and this is
Celeste,
and this is Extra Tuesday, and I am super excited about this episode of Extra Tuesday because we have some very special friends with us today. They are some people that Celeste and I have really come to enjoy. I have probably binged listened to everything they've put out recently, and that is the host of Kaijuvision Radio. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
So,
or should we say konnichiwa?
Konnichiwa. There you go. Very cool. So they are the hosts of Kaijuvision Radio, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what exactly, if you guys could tell us, is Kaijuvision Radio.
All right. I'm Nathan Marchand. I'm one half of the hosts here at Kaijuvision Radio. We are a podcast about the appreciation of giant monster movies
and discovering their historical and cultural value.
We rehearse this every time we record an episode. Trust me. But we're a movie podcast, and there's a lot of those out there, and there's a fair amount of kaiju podcasts out there. And what we're doing is right now we are chronologically going through the entire Godzilla franchise. So we're starting with movie 1. And we're going to go in order, and we're going in the Japanese order, because the American releases of these are a little bit weird.
All over the place.
Yeah, they're all over the place. Trust me.
We believe the Japanese versions to be the original thing, and so that makes the most sense to see.
Yeah, and we're going to go through, and we'll be talking about them as films, and talking about the aesthetics and what makes them good films. Some of them we will riff on a little bit because some of them kind of deserve it.
And some of them are just fun entertainment.
Yeah.
As many as you know.
Yeah. But we're also going to be talking about things that are related to the movie, because one of the things that a lot of people, particularly Americans, when they're watching these, is they are removed from the original historical and cultural context that these films were released in. So there are going to be things that they are not going to quite catch. And by knowing those things, and I can speak to this personally because doing the research that we've done on these films, I've actually gained a greater appreciation for them. And you're talking to somebody who's been a fan of Godzilla for probably close to 2 decades now, I think, for me. I don't look it, but...
Ever since I was in my late single digits age-wise, I saw my first Godzilla movie, and it was one of those that was on a VHS, and so I just saw it over and over again, and it was because it was so different. And these movies are so different.
Yeah.
Right? They're their own genre. But like this podcast is really about, it's like a movie podcast combined with like a sort of political, social, historical podcast.
Right.
Like it's
and we always work very hard to make sure we tie. Yeah,
things.
And we always make sure to tie what we're talking about back to the films so that people understand why
we're talking about all this.
Why we're talking about all this. Yeah.
It's about context.
Yeah.
Very
stuff
cool.
that you didn't know before.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, heck, we even did something a little bit accidental. Our latest episode on Rodan, which we put out on October 25th. Mm-hmm. Well, the related topic to that is one of them is Japan's history with the UN, because they joined the UN the same year that movie was released.
I was just listening to that this morning, actually.
Yeah, and we found out that October 25th is United Nations Day.
Nice.
So, totally by accident.
So just landed on
awesome.
October 25th, right in the right time. But that's what the podcast is. It's a little something very different, I think, from what is out there.
Yeah, and we've been listening to a lot of our competition, I guess you could say, and no one is doing things exactly how we're doing it. So we're very excited about it.
I don't think anybody has. I think we went pretty original.
It's always a good thing.
We could have just done anything, and we decided to take 2 years to put it together.
Yeah.
We're glad to be on the air now.
Yes. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am to be done with all the planning stuff and to actually be recording.
See, we talk about these movies exponentially more than we do in the podcast episodes already, so we feel like we have the material down.
Oh, yeah.
Well, with that much preparation, what inspired you to do this, to create a podcast based around Godzilla or Kaiju?
Initially, we got started on this because we were on a podcast that's hosted by a couple of our mutual friends, and we had been guests on their podcast individually before, and they were doing something of an anniversary episode, so they were bringing back a bunch of people.
You were a guest about literary stuff.
Yeah, I've been.
I was a guest about doing like a movie,
classic films,
classic film.
Yeah,
section.
and I was going on there, and they had interviewed me about when I had my first book published and all of that sort of stuff. So they brought us all back, and they had various segments that they would do. So what they did initially is they had Brian come on to do, it was called Cinema Selections.
Yeah.
To talk about classic film. He decided to talk about a Godzilla movie, and they surprised me. I had already done part of the recording with them, and then they surprised me and said, well, we'll bring Nathan on for this one too, because they knew I was a fan.
Right.
And so we had a nice little, probably, I don't know, 10-minute, 15-minute discussion about this Godzilla movie.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, I don't know anybody near me at all that knows anything about all this.
Yeah.
Because it seems like up until recently, these movies were like
very niche,
hard to find,
very niche.
A lot of them were not in print, and not in production, etc. And so it was rare. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then some time passed. Well,
if you listen to that episode, our buddies actually said you guys should start your own podcast. Yeah. They said you guys had a great dynamic. You should start your own podcast. Yeah. And then I made a little joke about what it would be called. And
then some time passed, and then you approached me about.
No, you approached. You got a hold of one of our friends, and he told me, hey, he wants to start this podcast.
So was I initiated it?
Yeah, you initiated it.
I thought it was you.
No, it was you. Because he got a hold of me and said, hey, Brian wanted to. Emailed me, said he wanted to talk to you about doing that podcast. I'm like, for real?
It took me a while. I thought about it.
Right.
For a while. And I was like, well, what are the benefits to something like this? And I thought, well, a lot of people probably have done this already. And I thought, okay, what are we going to do instead? So after about maybe the first couple weeks of meeting, that was when we started getting into, we keep coming back to all this stuff about Japan all the time.
Yeah.
And, like, I was loving to interject all this stuff because I went to Indiana University School of Public Environmental Affairs. I got my graduate degree there in public administration, concentrating in international affairs. And so I was doing I've done all these comparative politics work and political science work. I did political science for my BA, and then I got my MPA. And so now there's all this knowledge in me, and I'm like, man, by the time you watch these movies, like the fifth time through, you start to notice an awful lot.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who have written on this stuff, and we researched that, and then I was like, they're not hitting it. They're still getting close, but they're just not hitting the mark.
Right.
And then I'm like, man, this is something that's really different.
Right.
That we can see where this leads us. And then we thought, are there really enough of these movies in the series that really bring up this stuff? And it's like, oh my gosh. But we've seen these movies over and over and over.
Oh, yeah.
So many times. I can pretty much say what everybody's going to say before we say it.
Oh, yeah.
we went, but like America, like, what was it? The co-director of one of
Shin Godzilla, the newest one. Shinji Higuchi. We got to meet him, actually.
No kidding.
Yeah, a couple months ago, there's a convention that's held every year for almost 25 years now. They're doing their 25th show next year. It's called G-Fest.
Yeah, it's in Rosemont. It's by O'Hare Airport.
It's dedicated entirely to Godzilla and Kaiju and Tokusatsu. So you go there and it's all like Ultraman and Godzilla, Gamera, all of these things. And one of their guests of honor this past July was Shinji Higuchi, co-director of Shin Godzilla. So we got to meet him.
And he said how Americans, when they watch movies, they really watch movies.
Right.
He said he stated it as a fact.
Yeah.
and I think he's right.
Yeah.
And when I watch these movies, I really watch them.
Yeah, and what was really cool is there was a theater that's nearby where the convention is held, and every year when the convention goes on, they do screenings of a lot of these movies. and they did a special screening of Shin Godzilla, and it was introduced by Mr. Higuchi.
No kidding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And he said this movie was made by Japanese people for Japanese people.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, we had been working 2 years on this already. And finally, and really in the middle of planning this, Shin Godzilla comes out, which is super heavy with all these overtones.
Oh, yeah.
And not only the 3/11 disaster and all that, but just everything about Japan.
Right.
It's so amazing. And so that really came at the best possible time. And I thought, this really completely validates all the stuff we've been working on. And
Absolutely.
this could have just been some mindless action movie or something that wasn't all that important. And instead, it's just we got deluged with political and cultural meaning with that movie.
Oh, man. There's so much depth to that movie, and I really enjoyed it and a lot. And we actually talked about that in our podcast that came out. At the time of this recording, it will come out here in a couple of days. But by the time this episode comes out, it would have been out for a minute. And there are a lot of deep cultural aspects to that movie. And I can see why it would inspire you to do some stuff. Absolutely. But let me ask you this. We kind of got the background of how you guys created it and what inspired you to do it. And it's kind of cool how it's kind of real happenstance. But what do you guys foresee as the future of Kaijuvision Radio?
Well, we have to get through what we're calling our Godzilla journey. Because
maybe about 40 episodes roughly.
Because there are
just released the 6th one this week.
Yeah,
Right.
because there are just that many Godzilla movies. We are branching out a little bit. We're talking about Rodan, and our next episode will be on Mothra from 1961.
Because you just got to do those two.
Yeah, it's because actually Toho was kind of doing what I talk about Marvel's doing now. Although I think they kind of stumbled upon it by accident because they had all of these solo kaiju movies and they started having them cross over. So Rodan and Mothra show up so many times in these movies that we figured we would be remiss if we did not talk about these solo movies.
Right.
So that's we're taking a minor detour on that.
End of May will be our last episode.
If we keep with our recording schedule. Yeah.
That's what we're targeting.
Yeah.
Because it's weekly episodes, which is very quick.
Yeah.
Banging out episodes like this every week we are very busy.
Yeah.
This is really breakneck pace. Some of the podcasts are released once a month or bi-weekly.
Every 2 weeks. Yeah.
Right.
This is just noon on Wednesday. Every Wednesday, just have at it.
Yeah.
Binge watch it. Go on YouTube and see all the cool looking videos that we've done in 4K. I mean, we really produced this. I'm not really. But to really answer the question, I'm not sure what we're going to do after these 40 episodes.
Yeah, we've talked about potentially branching out, maybe talking about some other kaiju film series. There aren't any nearly as long as Godzilla, but there are other ones out there. Like there's been like a dozen King Kong movies, and there's if you've ever heard of Gamera is kind of the closest thing to competition Godzilla had in Japan. There's been about 15 or so, 14, 15
Ultraman,
movies. Ultraman is mostly television.
Right.
And not all of Ultraman has actually been released in the U.S.
I'm not sure exactly how many other kinds of movies you can apply this exact formula.
Right.
This is a really very specific thing to Godzilla. Mostly, I would say the vast majority. So I'm not exactly sure what other kind of movies you can apply this to. Nothing really comes to mind. This is just such a special series.
Very unique.
And so, it really, by the time we finish our 40th one of these, well, 38, I guess, we are going to have to wait on the other two movies.
Right.
Not in 19 and 20, but we'll wait.
Yeah.
We'll be here.
But we'll figure it's a bridge we've decided we'll cross when we get there.
In between that, I have no idea what we're going to do after the episode 42 or whatever it ends up being.
Right.
We'll have a nice body of work that we'll be proud of.
We'll have a lot of experience.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to want to take a break in between our last episode and the next G-Fest, which G-Fest is July.
Yeah.
Middle July.
Middle of July, yeah.
And so at least have a month or so where we can just be like, did we actually create all this? You've got to be kidding me. Like I'll visit the website and I'm like, really? We did this?
Yeah. Who would spend 80 hours of their life talking about Godzilla? We would!
Go into this much depth with it. And trying to just do as much as we can with what we got. Which is something really amazing.
Absolutely.
Japanese marketing and Japanese creativity is really ingenious.
Right. Now you guys gonna cover the American movies like the Godzilla from '98 and then 2014?
Yes. We are.
Yeah.
All the
Please
American
tell your listeners not to send us any hate mail yet. But yes, we will be talking about the American films. Yeah, I can't.
We're going to do all the Japanese ones and then the American entries and then the radically altered American versions of some of these. But there's there's only a couple.
There's two of those. Yeah.
We're going to cover those two.
Well, we've already one of them's already out. We've done King of the Monsters, and then there was the first film in the Heisei series had a similar treatment that the original film had, except it was
worse,
completely manhandled.
We're going to brave that one too.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Dive into it and see.
Yeah, I mean,
what happens.
No joke. They thought that they did exactly the same thing. Cut 30 minutes out of the movie. They brought Raymond Burr back, playing the same character, and I'm sure they thought, this will be kind of cool. Except Raymond Burr does even less in that one than he does in the other one. At least in King of the Monsters, he's serving as a surrogate for the audience, and he's narrating things and he's explaining things so that the American audience at the time can understand it. In this one, he sits around and occasionally makes some remarks about how stop doing what you're doing. Godzilla's going to kill you all.
That's the movie company that created this had to do with Roger Corman. If that says so.
Now is this the 1985 Godzilla? I understand.
It has one good thing in it. One.
Chronologically, though, not everybody's just been doing these chronologically, actually. But feeling all the differences between all these as it goes, as if you had been alive when they came out, it's really different.
Yeah, watching these
changes over time.
Yeah, watching these in sequence has been a very interesting experience for me. And this is coming from someone who's seen all of these.
Yeah, so we're taking the roller coaster ride that everybody else did when they came out. It's like so radically different between these.
Right.
And we have to react to it as if none of these other movies have really been created yet.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The differences are so pretty shocking.
Yeah, there's some very distinct flavors to a lot of these.
Yeah, they didn't like doing the same thing over and over again. And having just a different version of the same thing. Instead, these are different kinds of movies between each other.
Yeah, because
so different from each other.
Yeah, particularly if you look at the Showa series, which is the films from the 50s to the 70s. There are some of them you can definitely see what was influencing them at the time. Like there's one that's actually kind of like a Bond movie.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah, there's like a sci-fi movie, and then there's like one geared towards young people, and one geared towards children, and then one, you're filling in every piece of the pie that makes up that market.
Yeah,
and you're creating a national phenomenon that is Gojira.
Yeah,
wow.
It's a testament to the versatility of Godzilla as a character. Mm-hmm. There's only a handful who can say that they've been both hero and villain, and they've meant as many things as he does.
Right.
I mean, I actually at one point in my notes I listed off just the different personas that Godzilla has had, depending on who you talk to, and I came up with 6 of them.
Oh wow!
We're talking nuclear allegory, force of nature, superhero, father figure, all of these things. It's crazy.
Oh man, sounds like you guys have a lot coming down the pipeline then for this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so with all this upcoming material that we're really looking forward to, how can people find Kaijuvision Radio?
Our website would be a good place to start, Kaijuvision.com. Mm-hmm. And then we are on, I think, every podcatcher known to man.
YouTube, especially. Our YouTube channel has a whole bunch of 4K videos attached to it. And so it's stuff like nature, water,
architecture.
Nice.
And we do occasionally post some kind of bonus videos on there. Like we got some cool videos from G Fest when we were there, and we'll post those up there as kind of like little extras.
Yeah, we got a cosplay performance of some others. And
it was really cool. It's a wonderful story.
Wait, they're cosplaying as Godzilla?
There was some of that there, but in this case, what it was is we went to a
twins.
Yeah,
what?
These two.
It's a wonderful story.
Yeah, it's the Shobajin, and
that's Wind Fairy.
I was in the front row and I had the camera, and they came in and we were like, what?
Well, what happened?
We were at a Mothra panel.
There was a Mothra panel. And so the guy was doing stuff on the
song, and I was like, oh my god, this needs to be filmed right now. And they totally looked the part. The costumes, you could tell it's so much work.
Oh, that is so cool.
That's currently our most viewed video on the channel.
Turn the camera on. Turn the camera on.
It's been up since the convention.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that episode. That's awesome.
Turn the camera on.
Yeah,
right?
YouTube is a great place to get everything. And then also, we're on all the podcatchers. iTunes,
Stitcher,
Music,
Google Play.
Stitcher,
Right.
TuneIn Radio.
TuneIn.
Right.
Blueberry or Android.
Right.
The Android.
Very cool.
Podcast system,
Yeah, we want all of the things.
That's awesome. So how can people get a hold of you guys then if they're like, I'm really interested, like I like what we've done here. We just love your show. We just want to let you know how awesome it is. How can they get a hold of you?
It's feedback@kaijuvision.com.
Yeah, that's our email. We also love getting comments on our website, on our YouTube videos, on our social media. We love getting comments from people there.
Right. What's your social media, and where can people find that social media?
We're on Facebook. You can just do a search for Kaijuvision Radio, and it should come up, and then we'll have a little page there.
On Twitter,
and then,
we're at Kaijuvision.
At Twitter, it's at Kaijuvision.
Right. I would have to say this for those watching right now. Make sure you type in the word radio, because there's something else called Kaijuvision, and it's not these guys.
Yes.
Yeah,
that guy. Yeah, that guy.
When I was first looking you guys up, actually, I typed in Kaijuvision on YouTube, and I was like, oh, cool. I was like, this is not what I'm looking for here.
This is not the podcast you were looking for.
Oh, man. All right, so cool. So my next question for you guys then is this. We've been asking all of our guests that have been on the show with us this past month, what is your favorite Godzilla film ever?
You want sure? It's hard to pick because there's so many really good ones. The original is way too easy to pick.
Right.
That thing, as far as I care, exists in a category all its own. So, dang it. Probably, I'll just say it out there. I may change my mind later. Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Oh.
It's one that I've been very fond of. It's actually one of the 70s films, and the 70s was not... It's not the most celebrated era of Godzilla.
It was a special
Let's
time.
just say, yeah. But it holds a fondness for me, in large part because it was the first one I ever saw. That was my introduction to Godzilla and the Godzilla franchise. Although I only caught about half of it. It was on TV once. But looking back on it now, I mean, there's some really interesting things that are in it. It has a lot of really great ideas and themes, some very complicated characters who are in it. Some very silly things that are in it, too, that kind of undermine it a little bit, but I'm able to let it slide because there's just so much good stuff in it. And in a lot of ways, it was a pretty daring movie. It was the grand finale to the Showa era, because after this, there wasn't a Godzilla movie for 9 years.
Yeah.
So, and it's at a time when Godzilla was very much a superhero. So it's the heroic Godzilla, and he's doing lots of really cool stuff. Has my all-time favorite Godzilla entrance. I've been referring to it as Godzilla's "I'm Batman" moment because he fires at one of the villainous kaiju from off-screen, and he falls over, and then you have this fast zoom on Godzilla who's being silhouetted against some explosions. It takes place at night. And he's being silhouetted against these explosions, and the lights come up, and you can see Godzilla, the detail of Godzilla's face, and then the Akira Fukube music kicks in, and Godzilla bellows out a roar, kind of cracks his knuckles a little bit.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to watch this one now.
Oh, you should. It's great. So, right now, that's the one I'd say I like the best.
Awesome. How about you, man?
My favorite would be, it's a tie between Invasion of Astro Monster from 65.
That is a great one, too.
And Godzilla
I love that
vs.
one, too.
Gigan, 1972.
Okay, why those two?
Because King of Ghidorah, that's why.
Oh, yes.
I love King of Ghidorah.
Ghidorah!
And,
Hail Ghidorah! Hail Ghidorah!
Absolutely my favorite. And they're just fun. They're fun movies, too. 60s and 70s were some fun times for these movies. They got really experimental at times. And they did a lot of things that I don't think a lot of studios in this country would have with a big saga like this, like going comical and
both of
showing
those,
the many shades of how many different kinds of movies in the same franchise you can do.
Right.
And both of those were written by our favorite Godzilla screenwriter as well,
Shinichi Sekizawa.
Oh,
who is absolutely wonderful.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How many of the franchise did he do?
A lot of these movies.
Yeah, just wait. Our next episode is when we're really going to start talking about Sekizawa.
That's our first Sekizawa film is
next week. Yeah, he wrote Mothra.
Really? Mothra was probably one of my first monsters that I saw outside of Godzilla. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, Mothra is wonderful. Yeah. Mothra is actually so popular that she actually, not only did she have her solo movie before Godzilla, but then had her own trilogy of films in the 90s.
No kidding.
That's pretty sweet.
They're kiddie films. I've seen them a very long time ago, and I haven't watched them again since. I have them, I just haven't gotten around to it.
Right.
Well, since we're talking about Mothra rather than Godzilla, what would be your favorite kaiju other than Godzilla?
That's another tough one. Yeah, Ghidorah.
We ask the hard questions here.
I love Ghidorah. Probably Anguirus. I'm a big fan of Anguirus. Not a lot of people are, which I'm surprised by.
Which one's that one?
Anguirus is
Godzilla Raids Again.
Godzilla Raids Again is the first time he shows up. He's like an ankylosaurus. So he has a carapace on his back. He's not a turtle, but he has a carapace on his back. And the actual ankylosaurus, I think it's just supposed to be just like a flat shell that protects it. But Anguirus is that's not cool enough for Anguirus. Anguirus has his a carapace covered in spikes.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
it's a fun design. It's the first thing. It's the first monster Godzilla ever fought.
Yeah, and then so they started off as enemies, but in later films they were buddies, him and Godzilla, and so he's kind of like Godzilla's sidekick, his Robin to his Batman. But the thing that I love about Anguirus is I love his attitude. He doesn't breathe fire or shoot lasers and all of these fancy things. He's just ferocious. He has one heck of an attitude. He has spikes. He has his teeth, and he doesn't care if he has to fight a 3-headed golden dragon from space that breathes lightning. He's just like, I don't care. You come down here, and I'm gonna bite you. There's actually this spectacular move he pulls in Godzilla vs. Gigan that I'm just like, how does this not do more damage than it does in this movie? Where Godzilla has all three of Ghidorah's heads in kind of a headlock.
Right. And
then Anguirus goes up in front of them and then springboards himself back and smacks his spiky back into Ghidorah. And I'm like,
so cool.
That right there, Anguirus, that is why I love you.
That's what's great about this podcast, though, because we get to love all, geek out about the monster fights, and at the same time we can go as deep as we really are going.
Right.
So we're covering like everything.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. And that's part of the reason why we love what you guys do. We're a big fan of people who are passionate about something, and then they geek out about it, but they do it in an intelligent way. So we really appreciate everything you guys do. What other projects do you guys have going on or coming down the future outside of Kaijuvision?
You want to take this first? Or?
Let's see.
Because I have a lot I can talk about.
Yeah, I have another YouTube channel. It's called Final Fantasy Tactics Complete Playthrough and Transcript.
Yeah.
And what I did was, it was one of the, I played it when it came out. I was 16, and I played it all the way through, and it took a while, but I got it. And it is literally the greatest story I've ever seen in a video game in my life. People play it just for the story,
right?
So what I did was I did a whole playthrough of it, where I played it the way I normally play it. but I make sure that all of the cutscenes and all the dialogue can be seen.
Right.
Isn't skipped. I did everything all the way through, all the battles, all that stuff. And the story is so just cathartic, and it's like, I cannot believe they're actually doing this story. It was, they had so much testicular fortitude in making that story. It does all the stuff that you'd never think would happen, and the ending just absolutely kills you. And it's like life changing. Like, all I get is comments on the channel, and it's about, this story is so epic. This scene is so epic. It's just, this story broke the mold with Final Fantasy stories. It's one of the most twisted video game stories I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. I actually played a little bit through it. And it was a really interesting story.
To something completely beyond. It's like 4 chapters. After the second chapter, the whole thing just explodes into something you'd never. This guy literally turns into the devil.
Oh wow!
Got to that part. But like, it's a really different kind of story. It's so awesome, though.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah. Me, I'm involved in a lot of different things. Before this whole podcasting thing, I did a YouTube channel as well. I put my YouTube channel on hiatus so I can focus on the podcast. But I think I had about, 60, 80 videos on there. I did different kinds of shows. While I was on there, the one I did most frequently was called But I Digress.
Right.
And that was a show where I talk about different kinds of creativity and kind of like writer advice sort of a thing. And then I would also sometimes do movie reviews. But the primary thing that I get involved with is I'm a professional writer. I do a lot of freelancing. I've written for magazines and newspapers, and I'm also a novelist. So I've got books out there that you can buy, including a kaiju book.
Yeah.
Kaiju novel, novella.
You had mentioned that the other night in our live stream with Francisco.
Yeah, it's called Destroyer. If you look on Amazon, you can find it. It'll be listed as Destroyer Deluxe Edition because I made a new edition of the book that has a bonus short story in it that was written by one of my brilliant writer friends named Nick Hayden, who needs to get more well-known. So people, right now, if you don't want to read my books, you just skip my books and go find Nick. Because Nick is terrible at promotion, and honestly, he's a better writer than I am.
Speaking of promotion, we're going to be at the Fort Wayne
Fantasticon Fort Wayne this weekend, which will be the first time we've been to a convention promoting the podcast.
That is so cool.
Well, since the podcast has been launched,
right, and that is
it's this weekend. This weekend, Saturday and Sunday,
awesome.
At the Grain Wayne Center in downtown Fort Wayne. But and like I said, I've written a lot of books, and and I'm still writing. I'm editing something right now for an ongoing fantasy serial that Nick and some of my other writer friends and I have been working on called Children of the Wells, childrenofthewells.com. And so I'm hoping to get that finished soon. And then after that, I have a couple of books that I need to get out of my system, including one that I started but I haven't finished. And it's a sequel to my first novel, so I really want to get back to that one. You'll probably hear a lot of jokes from writers who talk about how they have characters that they joke that talk to them.
Right.
And I've been a little bit concerned that if I leave these characters along for much longer, they're liable to kill me in my sleep.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Let's see, on the website there's a link to my Final Fantasy site. There's a link to your author website.
To my author website.
There's what else? There are the DVD buying guides for the
movies. That I wrote up for the movies.
All
because there's for all 30 of them, because there's a lot of these movies have been released in different editions. And it can be a little bit confusing for someone who's trying to dive into this.
However, they are a lot easier to find than they were
much easier
10,
to find
11 years ago even.
Yeah. Some of them are a little bit...
In 2006, I could get about 2/3 of them.
Wow.
The other 1/3, I couldn't get.
No. And some of them are a little bit goofy with their availability right now, but I'm hoping with this huge resurgence of interest in kaiju and
more
Godzilla
movies coming
more
out
Godzilla movies, that more of these will be get re-released stateside.
Right. So, and with that, I want to ask one last bonus question from you guys. What is the best place for people to actually find Godzilla films?
Amazon is a good place.
Still is,
There's
yeah.
still a lot of good ones that you can find on there. If you want to try to get some of the more difficult ones, eBay might be a better option because, my gosh, Amazon jacks up the price on some of these things.
Well, and it's a lot of times it's the sellers,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
the individual sellers.
Right.
Yeah, as we've been going through
Mainly
and
it's that.
as we've been going through and rewatching these movies for the podcast, there was one in particular I looked at Brian and said, "Now you'd be nice to that one. It's worth like $300." I mean,
Oh, wow.
And they do another printing and it goes right back to 1990.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's probably the best. Yeah, that's still probably the best place to find it.
Yeah,
Very
and then
cool.
try if you find one that's out of print, hopefully it won't be. But
Right.
try to find it somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of I've scoured the internet looking for different places where you could potentially buy these things. There's a lot of good internet sellers that will carry these things for not absurdly high prices, like I don't know, your left arm or your firstborn.
And probably not an importer.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
like they call themselves an importer or whatever on Amazon. It's like no.
Yeah. And then the
much.
other great thing that's been happening is that with the vast majority of these releases, you'll be able to get both the dubbed and the Japanese version.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big
So
proponent of the Japanese.
yeah, we're big
Yeah.
proponents of the
I'm
Japanese
an original.
version.
We're big fans, too.
Yeah, but there are some of them where even if you just want to look at them just to kind of compare what they did, it's interesting because some of the movies when they're dubbed, they're dubbed pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the later ones, when it's not an American studio dubbing them, it's just whatever schmucks that Toho can find in Hong Kong to do it. Oh, that's when it gets awful. That one about like you're just like no, it's just no. Some of that dubbing is pretty bad,
Right.
especially when you get to the '90s movies. Oh my god.
Yeah, we have a long way to go. It feels like before we get to then. We have to get through the whole show series first.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Oh my gosh, the
Next week's
'90s
gonna be
dubbing.
big though. Mafia is a huge movie.
Right.
Yeah, everything. I will tell you right now, everything changes with Mothra.
That's cool.
It's an awesome movie.
Completely changes.
That is awesome. Well, guys, we're super excited about what you guys are doing, and we hope that those of you who are watching right now that you're excited about Kaijuvision Radio. I want to encourage you guys to check them out. What's going to happen actually down in our links down below on this YouTube video are all the links to their personal stuff, to the books, to the everything else they have, and we want to encourage you guys to check them out. Leave comments on their videos, connect with these guys, love them, and share them out, and share with people who you don't think would like it, because I'm telling you, it caught me by surprise, and it's caught so many other people by surprise how great this podcast really is. So,
Very much.
Thank you very much. Domo arigato.
awesome. Well, Devoted Geeks, this is pretty much the end of the show. We appreciate you guys. Again, Brian, Nathan, thanks so much for being on the show and being part of this wonderful Devoted Geek community and everything that you guys do for Kaijuvision Radio, because I'm just always in awe. So, all right, guys. Well, that's it. I don't think we have any other announcements for you guys.
I have
Hope
a
you guys-
funny way to close out the podcast for if you want.
Oh, yeah, I can do it, man.
Oh no! They say he's got to go. Go, go, Godzilla!